Thank you all for being with us tonight. And we'll hold the Pledge of Allegiance for just a minute, and I'll introduce the Seguin High School Chamber Choir under the direction of Mr. Thomas Farin and Kate Trust. Seguin High School choral program involves over 200 students and 8 performing ensembles and has gained both the local and state reputation for outstanding performance. The Chamber Choir represents the most advanced students in the program, many of which also serve as leaders at Seguin High School on athletic teams, in student government, and other fine arts programs. The Seguin Chamber Choir performs regularly throughout the Arlington community and was honored in 2010 with an invitation to sing for the Texas Music Educators Association Convention in San Antonio. They will be performing It Takes a Village by Shmoko. Mr. Wren, good evening.
Takes a whole village to raise our children. It takes a whole village to raise one child. We all, everyone, must share the burden. We all, everyone, must share the joy.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was the Seguin High School Chamber Choir under the direction of Mr. Thomas Wren and Kate Thrust. Thank you, folks. And we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance next. Mrs. Pena, would you lead us in the pledge? Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, please, if you would silence your cell phones and electronic devices and join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. We have a small group of students from Arlington High School that would like to present something to the board. So students, come on down. Thank you. You're welcome. And that takes us into our agenda for this evening. The first item is recognition of the Masons. So, gentlemen, would you stand up so we can all see who you are? There you go. Thank you. And I'm going to read a short recognition page here. Tonight, the Arlington ISD would like to take a moment to recognize the efforts and commitment of the Masonic Lodge 438 to our district. Supporting public education has long been a tradition for the Lodge. Some highlights of recent years are the establishment of the Take Time to Read program, the provision of videotapes for the instruction of dyslexic children, and the use of the Lodge for instructional programs during summer months when school was not in session. The Lodge also started and expanded a high school scholarship program for students at Arlington High Schools. In an effort to recognize younger students, they also provide a Lamar Medal and a small monetary gift at each of the district's junior highs. At the elementary school level, they have chosen to recognize the talented teachers that provide the foundation for the youngest of our students by hosting a special presentation where a teacher of excellence is chosen. This program has been recently expanded to select a teacher from each network and present each with a gift basket of items donated by local businesses, individuals, and the Arlington Lodge. From this select group of outstanding teachers, an overall Teacher of Merit is selected. At this time, I would like to ask Masonic Lodge number 438, Mr. Steve Shipe, to come forward so the district may present the Lodge with a certificate of appreciation for the Lodge's continued commitment to the students and the teachers of AISD. Mr. Shipe. I'll come down there. Mr. Shipe, nice to see you again. This is a certificate of appreciation presented to Masonic Lodge number 438 for your service to the Arlington ISD, February 7th, 2013. We appreciate you very much. I have one more thing for you. So these pins are worn by board members, and we give them to special people on special occasions, and I'd like you to wear it proudly, and we sure do appreciate everything that the Masonic Lodge has done for our teachers and our kids. So thank you, sir.
Very good.
Would you like to say anything?
Yes.
Yeah, this one's yours.
President Barron, I would like to thank the school board for this special recognition this evening. If I would, I'd like the representatives of the lodge here to stand and give their name, and then we'll have a photo op together. And also, I would like to thank the president of the Greater Arlington Lions Club for their generous donation to our scholarship program at the high school level. Thank you, Brother President.
John Thomas.
Jim Rogerson.
John Gauze.
Richard Gaddis.
Travis Lyle.
Ray Bomber.
Ed Yorth.
Bill Scheid.
Bruce Dalton.
Paul Pinkerton.
Bob Collier.
Leon Carpenter.
John Forbes.
Thomas Spencer.
And on behalf of the 645 additional members not represented this evening, I'd like to thank you for this award.
Thank you.
And we sure do appreciate all that the Masons do for our teachers. The kiddos from Arlington High gave us a volunteer. The only thing missing is you. Spence, can we get this on the TV? We love our volunteers. We don't have to pay them anything. It's perfect. It's perfect. That takes us to CBOC Semi-Annual Report. Dr. Cavazos.
Thank you, President Barron. This time I'd like to invite Cindy Powell up to the podium to lead us off on the CBOC Semi-Annual Report to the Board. Cindy.
Yes, good evening, President Barron, board members, Dr. Cavazos. In the spring of 2010, this board established the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee to provide transparency and enhance public confidence in the use of proceeds from the sale of bonds authorized in the 2009 bond election. There are 11 active members on the CBOC and 2 alternates. And this group meets once a quarter with a group of administrators to review our progress on the bond package. They ask wonderful questions. We have good discussion with them. And part of their charge is that they make a report, at least semi-annually, to the board on the progress of the bond package and our work with the bond package. So I have this evening, it's my privilege to introduce Justin Chapa, who is the chairperson of the committee, to give that report to the board.
Dr. Cavazos, members of the board. On behalf of the CBOC, I'd like to present our first update for this year. May have some technical difficulties here. Forward arrow. So Cindy's already covered, sometimes it's the simple answer is the best one.
Oh, I was going with, that's the voice from behind the curtain.
Yeah. So Cindy's already covered our purpose, which is generally to provide transparency and enhance confidence. Occasionally, we will make findings and recommendations to the board. We don't have too many of those this time around, but from time to time, Cindy and her team will come to us and update us on things that the board is considering and kind of use us as a sounding board. And in general, we monitor the progress of the different areas allocated for the 2009 bond program. Our goal is to help the board maximize the potential of the bond funds. And as Cindy mentioned, we have 11 members. We come from a diverse group of backgrounds. We have some people who've been involved in city government, some people whose background is in finance, and we think that we do a pretty good job as representing a cross-section of the community. And I'd like to especially thank our two alternates, Cleet McAllister and Walter Slavin. As alternates, they are non-voting members, but they come to every meeting and they participate just as if they were, and we appreciate the contributions that they've made. We generally meet once a quarter. Since our last update in the summer, we've met twice in August and in November. At our August meeting, we showed our support for additional spending of almost $500,000 in bond funds for additional flooring and roofing projects at 18 different campuses. We were also briefed on the board's plan to expand a couple of elementary schools and also build some additional elementary schools, and we approved those recommendations. At our second meeting in November, we received a technology presentation, and we'd especially like to thank Mary Manley and Amy Haynes from Williams Elementary for giving us a demonstration of the Promethean board system and different ways that technology is being integrated into the classroom. And I think I've lost the ability to, yeah. Give me a hand here.
No? It's changing there, it's just not changing up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just.
All right, and we're back. Okay, to date, the bonds have been allocated according to the pie graph here. We have $152.1 million that have been in progress or otherwise allocated. There's $34.6 million that remain to be spent over the life of the bond package. And so far, there's a projected surplus of $10.8 million, but like to emphasize that that is subject to change. That number primarily comes from the facilities allocation. There were some initial cost projections that came in under those projections, and so there were savings realized from those projects. The bond program was originally allocated with about $116 million for facilities upgrades, roughly $13 million for transportation upgrades. Those are the new natural gas-powered buses. $60 million towards technology, and the remainder, about $8 million for fine arts. So looking at those different categories in detail, in fine arts, currently about $4.7 million has been spent, $3.6 remaining. And we have been, for about a year now, giving grades to the different areas of the bond program, and we continue to give fine arts an A. Bill Huff and his team have done a superb job keeping us informed with how that aspect of the bond program has been spent, right down to each individual instrument. More information than obviously he has to provide, but we appreciate it, and it definitely shows that the district is being fiscally transparent and responsible. Something that we've been especially pleased with is the impact that the fine arts bond funds have made at the elementary campuses with expanding the orchestras and the bands there. In particular, students who previously reported not being able to participate in those programs, with the bond funds, the district has made it more feasible for them to participate in that aspect of fine arts. Moving on to transportation. This is the part of the bond program that was allocated for sort of rejuvenating the district's bus fleet with natural gas-powered buses. Currently, 72 buses have been purchased as part of the bond program. That leaves 48. And we give transportation an A. There have been several different funding mechanisms by which the district can save even more money by getting grants and by sending old buses to be retired and in the scrap heap. And those grants have come primarily from the state. The district applied for a grant from the state in the fall and should be learning about whether or not they will be a recipient sometime in the next few weeks. In technology, about $41.5 million are in progress or have been spent, leaving about 18.6. Again, we give technology an A. You might recall at our last presentation in the summer that we had some concerns about whether or not the distribution of technology was aligned with the training that teachers were receiving, and we're happy to report at the last few meetings that we've had that those concerns have been alleviated. There have been approximately 1,800 teachers receive training on iPads, about 300 teachers on Promethean boards, and that was as of our November meeting, so those numbers are probably higher now. And we understand that those trainings are being reevaluated in light of the strategic plan, and there has been a slight let-off in the amount of technology currently being purchased. I believe there was about $12.5 million budgeted for this year. About $9 million have been spent, which is a little bit off the pace that funds have been spent in the past, but because the district has opted towards letting campuses decide which forms of technology they would like to use in the classroom, that's been based at the campus level, and at some of the campuses, our understanding is that as campus administrations have turned over, there's been some sort of slowdown in the purchasing procedures, and there's also been sort of a cutting back to make sure that individual campuses' expenditures are going to be in line with the technology goals of the strategic plan. But again, technology, as we saw at our demonstration, the demonstration given to us in November, is making an enormous difference in the classroom. Teachers on the whole, based on the survey that we did of campuses last year, are extremely satisfied with the responsiveness of the district's program and their ability to get new forms of technology into the classroom quickly and to be able to receive training on those things. For facilities, about $84 million are either in progress or have been spent. Again, there's that $10.3 million of projected surplus, which is subject to change. That leaves about $22 million for the remainder of the life of the bond program. We give facilities an A. This is perhaps the most visible, if you're driving down the streets of Arlington, the most visible impact that the bond program has had, all the way from resurfacing gym floors to a new addition at Lamar to a new cafeteria at Arlington High and to a new elementary school in East Arlington. The facilities program was the largest part of the bond program and arguably has made one of the largest impacts. Several major construction projects currently in the works. There will be some campus additions at the elementary schools that I believe are scheduled for completion sometime in 2014. Just to recap, there was the cafeteria expansion and a few classroom additional classrooms added at Arlington High last year. There's still construction, you might notice, going along Park Row in front of Arlington High, still ongoing. That's actually a different program, project that's not related to the cafeteria project, except that this is more of an aesthetic project to make one side of the campus look more like the other side of the campus. One side looked very new, one side looked dated. And so this is primarily a landscaping project that will redefine the front entrance to what the real front entrance is, away from something that was labeled auditorium to the place where people should actually enter the building. And also landscaping in the front, there were several areas of grass that frequently became muddy and not usable, and that will be replaced by hardscaping and additional landscaping. Sherry Street Elementary, as you might have heard, recently acquired a name. It is going to be named Adams Elementary after Mr. James Adams and Miss Barbara Adams. Of course, they longtime educators, most recently associated with Arlington High School and Hill Elementary, and that campus should be ready in time for the next academic year. It's a 900 student capacity school. Our understanding is that it's going to be the only two-story elementary campus in the district. And it's going to relieve overcrowding primarily at Johns and Atherton Elementaries, and this is the district's first step in relieving overcrowding in the East Arlington schools, which is something that we've been watching very closely. And additionally, in the bond program, there were classroom addition expenditures budgeted at the beginning of about $10 million. The district has found ways to enhance that amount of money available, and there should be, our understanding is, about 3 elementaries expanded in the coming years, with 2 additional elementaries to follow and potentially more in the future. At our last presentation, we highlighted some cost projection issues in the facilities program with MEP projects. That's mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. What happened, it seems that the projections that the budget was made on, so the money was not actually spent, we didn't go over budget, but the projected amount of money required to complete a package was not nearly high enough for what the bids came back at. We have since been informed that the primary reason that happened is there were, and this primarily, the cost projection issues almost exclusively relate to what we would describe as air conditioning or heating issues. A major component of that was there were some custom specified projects, so that the idea was that a particular set of equipment that was in a really restricted space, the idea would be to custom build equipment to make it more conveniently accessible. That, in turn, lowered the number of manufacturers who bid, which seemed to drive up prices. In the future, it sounds like the district is going to go for trying to get standard equipment in where possible, and that'll expand the pool of bidders to a larger number of manufacturers, which should in turn lower prices. The other issue was with digital controls. At some campuses, it sounds like digital controls were easily put in place, and those were scoped out and worked well. At a few campuses, it just wasn't feasible without revamping the entire air control system. And so at some campuses, the existing pneumatic controls are being left in place, and that is going to save the district some money. Where possible and it's cost feasible, they are going to make upgrades to that pneumatic equipment to make it more energy efficient. As I mentioned, we did in the fall approve an additional slew of projects. As you can see here, about $205,000 for carpet replacement at 5 elementary schools, about $265,000 for roofing repair at several elementary campuses. And so that's an additional expenditure from the bond program of about $472,000. But something that we want to highlight and something that we want to commend the district for is that that's just not some extra money that was heaped on top. And these weren't things that were necessarily missed before. As the bond program is ongoing, Bob and his team are going around the district. They're making sure are the things that we said we wanted to spend money on several years ago still things that we think money should be spent on. And in some cases, the answer has been no, the problem wasn't as bad as we thought it was, or we've been able to find a fix that is cheaper than we originally budgeted for. And in some cases, they have found problems that did not exist a few years ago, and these are some examples, perhaps, of those areas of need. This money, like I mentioned, was not heaped on top because at the same time the district identified these programs as areas of need. It rescoped several projects, or it decided to cancel some projects, and so the aggregate amount of extra spending to the bond program was in the tens of thousands of dollars and not, as this slide makes it appear, the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Bond management overall, we continue to be impressed with the work that Cindy Powell and the finance team, the services that they provide the district. In many cases, the district is, in almost any case that we have seen, the district is getting the best bang for its buck, the lowest cost of the bond program possible. They are extremely responsive. If we want data, they get us data. If we have questions, they answer our questions. We couldn't be more pleased with the overall management of the bond program, and so the grade for this section is an A+. And that's all we have for now. If you would have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them to the best that I can. And before I finish, I'd be remiss if I didn't recognize those committee members who are here tonight. David Wilbanks, who's the guru of the PowerPoint. I have to give him credit for the very aesthetically pleasing, if not presentation, efficient presentation, which is my fault. And then David Baker is also our numbers guru and has helped me out because as an attorney, and I see numbers and apparently technology, I fall apart. And so thanks to the Davids for being here tonight.
Mr. Hogg.
Thank you, Mr. Barron. Justin, thank you and the committee for all your work. This is one of the most well-run committees, and you guys are to thank for that. One question I did have.
Sure.
What was the increase? I know in the past we had, I think, transportation, was it a B+, and something else? What grades increased from the last time they were reported?
I think the grades that went up off the top of my head were facilities. We were concerned with the MEP cost projection issues,
Okay.
which we wanted to emphasize there were multiple causes of, and were not things that were actually over budget. They were caught early. The other area that I believe we perhaps gave an A- to that's now an A was technology, and we were concerned that there was some disalignment between the deployment of technology and the training that teachers were receiving. We did sort of a survey of different campuses anonymously, and in some of the campuses it seemed to be that technology was being integrated seamlessly. The teachers knew how to use it. At other campuses it was sort of more sporadic. There were some teachers that were asking for equipment, they were using it, and then there were some teachers that were asking for equipment, they received it just fine, and then it sort of stayed on the wall or it stayed in the closet because not necessarily that they didn't want to use it, but they didn't know how. And so based on that feedback, we had given an A- because we are generally extremely pleased with the way that area is going, and teachers and administrators seem pleased with it too. This time, we see that there's concrete efforts being made to address the concerns that we had last time with the additional trainings, and so we decided to, go from the A- up to the A.
That's perfect. That's outstanding to hear, and I think, especially on the technology, we hear of when teachers aren't using something, and no one likes to spend money on something and not being used. So anything we can do, from the bond committee to Dr. Cavasso's survey of anything new put in, just to assure that every single piece is being utilized. If we're going to spend the money and put it in your classroom, we want you to be trained on it first and
Right.
foremost and know how to use it.
Right, and get that alignment in. And it seems like word is spreading like wildfire that teachers can get an iPad if they request it, and so that's been gratifying to see.
Mr. Hibbs.
Mr. Hogg actually asked the same question I was going to ask, so I'm just going to say thank you. And a lot of people don't know this, but Justin is a graduate from Sam Houston, and he also is very instrumental giving back to that campus. So beyond his commitment to this committee, he also gives back to his school of graduation, and I appreciate that because I've talked to many people over there, and how you go back, and you're a mentor and an inspiration to so many. So I appreciate you doing that also, and thank you for the work that the committee has done.
Thank you for that.
And by you showing these grades of A gives me that reassurance that people like Bob Carlisle, Bill Huff with Fine Arts, and Cindy are doing an excellent job, and providing the information to you, and that we're working very hard to stay within the projected numbers that were given before. There was many with technology and everything else, but they're all gone, so I can't thank them. But I appreciate everything that you've done.
Thank you for that.
No other lights. Thank you very much, Mr. Chapa.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Takes us to appointments. Dr. Cavazos, is there anybody you want to talk about?
Thank you, President Barron. At this time, I'd like to recommend the individual discussed in closed session for the Assistant Superintendent for Administration.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Pena, second by Dr. Reich. Any discussion? Please.
Before we vote on this, I want to ask the individual that
Whoa.
there's 5 women directly behind me that you're going to have to be sitting with and working in close confines with. Do you think that you're up for that task?
We haven't voted yet. He
No.
doesn't know.
I just need to know if he knows that he's going to be up for the task.
Please vote. It's been a long time. All members present voting in the affirmative. The motion passes, and I will point out that Mr. Papa cannot be with us tonight. He's traveling for business. Dr. Cavazos.
Thank you, President Barron. It's my pleasure to present to you the new Assistant Superintendent for Administration, Mr. Michael Hill. Michael received his Bachelor of Science from Grambling State University, his Master of Education from the University of Texas at Arlington. His work experience includes, most recently, the principal of Seguin High School. He's been an academic associate principal in Mansfield, an assistant principal at Bowie High School, a career ed teacher and an assistant athletic coach at Bowie. He's been a health education and biology teacher, and he's been an economics teacher and assistant athletic coach in Louisiana. So, Michael, congratulations, and is there anything you'd like to say or anybody you'd like to introduce?
Yes, I would. To President Barron and the AISD Board of Trustees, I want to take this opportunity to thank you for your vote of confidence. You have an awesome task of charting the course for the Arlington ISD and its more than 65,000 students. The decisions that you make play a very integral role as we move forward. The decision to approve this recommendation from our superintendent shows how much confidence you have in him and how much confidence he has in me. It was a little more than 24 months ago that I stood at this podium and accepted the position as principal of Seguin High School to lead that school and its community. The same dedication, determination, and hard work that you've seen over the past 24 months is what I'll bring to this position of the assistant superintendent. The vision is there. The Achieve Today, Excel Tomorrow strategic plan will continue to guide us as we move forward in an AISD. To Dr. Cavazos, I want to thank you for this opportunity and this vote of confidence in the recommendation. I'm looking forward to your continued leadership, your laser-sharp focus, and your attention to detail. I'm committed to the efforts that are required for the Assistant Superintendent of Administration to assist you as we move AISD forward. You just don't get an opportunity to accept a position like this on your own merits. There are a lot of people who have played an important part in your success, and at this time I'd like to recognize some of those who have played a big part in me being here tonight. I want to start with the Seguin High School administrative staff. Ms. Pride, Mr. Humes, Ms. Simmons, Mr. Vonner, Dr. Evans, who's not here tonight. I want to tell you how much I appreciate you. Really mean a lot to me to work with you. Seguin High School staff, we've been through a lot, and I want to appreciate and thank them for all of their support as we moved into the 24 to 25 months that I was there. The Noble Nine Network, what else can I say? That's an inside joke there. Those 8 principals that work with me, they really made it easy to be the leader of that network in that community, and so I want to appreciate all of you. There are many other colleagues with whom I've worked throughout the years, and I would like to take this opportunity to thank them. I really appreciate their professional relationships. I do have a couple of people here that I'd like to recognize. My sister Bernadette, who keeps me grounded, and she always has a balance in the family. I have 8 other siblings that are possibly looking at this via the internet, and other family members. I'd like to thank them. My 2 sons, Taurus and Miles, who very special relationship, and some call her my better half, but I want to recognize her as my best half, my wife, Latasha. So. Thank you.
Michael, if you'll follow Ms. Evans out to the front, and if everybody will give the board a little head start, we're going to have a very short receiving line. We'll be right back in here in about 5 minutes to continue.
Thank you, President Barron. At this time, I'd like to ask Dr. Carter to start us off with the AEIS report.
Good evening, President Barron, members of the board, and Dr. Cavazos. This is my 18th reporting of the AEIS report. It never is boring. But as usual, the main thing to keep reminding people is that by the time we go over these things,
Hold on. Excuse me.
Just a second. First, we have to open the public hearing on AEIS Academic Excellence Indicator System. There. Now you're on, Dr. Carter.
good evening, President Barron, members of the board, and Dr. Cavazos. This is my 18th time for giving a summary on the AEIS report that is generated from the state and is required of all LEAs to report in a public hearing like this. And this is a very different kind of year for a number of reasons. One of the things that right off, first of all, with the AEIS report this year, 2 sections, which is typical, but 1 section on student performance is very much shortened from how it has been in the previous years. And this is due overwhelmingly because you recall that the state did not have passing standards for the grades 3 through 8 STAR tests. And so basically STAR results are not in there at all. Even though they had the passing standards for high school, those are not in there. So we have tax reports and we have the kind of the college readiness kinds of things in there. But it's a very short student performance section compared to how it has been in the past. I'm only referring to a lot of the things because, as I say, with these indicators, it's only tax for high school. We have the attendance rate, we have the dropout, completion, graduation rates, we have college readiness, which have these features of the advanced course, dual enrollment completion. We have the recommended high school, the distinguished programs, graduates. We have the Texas Success Initiative. We have the APIB, SAT indicators, and we have college-ready graduates. And that pretty much is it for the student performance index. Now, one of the reasons I'm not going over the summary as in detailed as I have in the past, where it's, for instance, comparing against the state, is there's so few. And comparing against the state is only at the district level, not going down into the subgroups. And with so few, it didn't seem reasonable as an overall summary to at least present. The AEIS report itself gives you everything that is needed in that regard. The other thing is, usually our summary, we try to give it so it's a picture of the whole district. And in trying to do this in a summary sense, it really is just about high school. Except in just a couple of things. So it doesn't give that kind of overall district picture as well as the previous ones have. But, you know, if there needs to be some other reporting comparing to the state, we certainly can pursue that further later. I tried to give some graphs that were much more in terms of the importance of aligning with the strategic plan. And we know the graduation rates, that is probably, if not the most important, at least one of the most important goals of the strategic plan. And of course, you see here with all students and the traditional accountability groups how that performance has been. You can see, for the most part, after the application of the more rigorous NCES dropout standards, that there pretty much has been a consistent moving upwards on the graduation rates. Now, there are really two main kind of college readiness indices. One is the college readiness, which is the Texas Success Initiative, and the other one is called College Ready, and I'll give a distinction between those. Right now, with the Texas Success Initiative, this, you see, it goes all the way through 2012. That is because it's all how the students performed on TAKS. So any of the 11th and 12th graders that took the TAKS test, if they met a certain standard, which is 2,200 on both the math, on the math or on the English language arts, and a 3 on the writing, then they were regarded as being ready for college. It's a different index from what we'll get into about the college readiness, but right now, at least that gives us some indication about how we're doing. And you see it's kind of a roller coaster, basically trending upwards with English language arts. With the math, not as much of a roller coaster, but at least in the last couple of years, pretty much more of an upward trend with most of the groups. With the college ready rates, now how this is different is this is, first of all, just the graduates, okay, who graduated, and it's only on them. So it doesn't include juniors like the Texas Success Initiative did. These are only the graduates, and it could be how they met that TSI standard or a certain standard on the SAT or on the ACT. So it could be any of those is what the college ready index is. And as you see in this for the class of 2011, we had a little bit more of a drop than we've had in some time. So in English language arts. With the mathematics, still a little bit of a downward trend overall, but not as dramatic as with the English language arts. And then with the College Ready Index, they give us the index for the combined, what is the percent that actually met the standards on both. And so, as you see in almost every case, there was a little bit of a dip, and that was mostly due to the English language arts area. That pretty much is the student performance. Now, Ms. Cindy Powell will go over section 2, which deals with the demographics and other district profile, and then we'll have questions.
Thank you, Dr. Carter. Section 2 of the AEIS report is a district profile that presents information about our students, our staff, and finances. And this information, too, is somewhat dated, as Dr. Carter mentioned a minute ago about the testing information. The student and the staff information that is in this year's AEIS report was compiled from the October 2011 PEAM snapshot date, the last Friday in October of 2011. And then the financial information that's in here actually comes from the 2010-2011 audit reports that were submitted to TEA. And they do that because that's the most current information they still have. They don't have yet all of the audit reports from the 11-12 year. So they are using the most recent information they have for the financial picture. In terms of student information, you can see that in October 2011, we had 64,592 students in membership. And I always tell people membership is different than enrollment. In membership are the kids who actually generate state funding for us. You have to be in attendance for at least 2 hours a day to qualify for membership. You can see the ethnic distribution among all of our students, and we are somewhat different than the overall state-wide distribution. Economically disadvantaged, we have 65%, over 65% of our students who are economically disadvantaged, and that percentage is actually up 2.3% from the previous year. And that is a higher percentage than the overall statewide average. And then limited English proficient, we likewise have a larger percentage of our kids who are limited English proficient than the statewide average, and that area too has increased for us, a little over 1% from the previous year. And then our at-risk kids, that is a larger population than the statewide average, and we code students using the state's 13 criteria for at risk, which includes things such as failing tax or being limited English proficient or being behind a grade level or parenting. There are 13 different indicators that are used to qualify a student as at risk. This pie chart simply shows the ethnic distribution of our student population, and you can see again the Hispanic population is our largest student subgroup, followed by the white category and African American. So we are a very diverse district. In terms of staff, again, this information comes from the 2011 October PEIM snapshot date, and in October of 2011 we had a total of 7,704 employees. And if you compare the breakdown of our staff by these different broad categories against the state average, you see that we have about the same percentage of our staff are teachers. In central administration, we have a lesser percent of our overall staff in that central administration category than the statewide average. Another thing that's important to point out on here is the last line, the instructional staff percentage. We have a higher percent of our total staff that have direct instructional responsibilities than the overall statewide average. And so that you continue to see in these kinds of statistics that we put the greater emphasis in the classroom with our staff and our resources. In terms of expenditures, again, this is information from the 2010-2011 audit report that was submitted to TEA. And it's important to note here that this presentation is all funding sources, not just the general operating fund. It is the general fund, our grant funds, capital projects funds, food service, and debt service. And so all of our funds combined, these are the operating expenses. When we talk about operating expenses, it's everything other than actual debt payments or capital outlay. So we spent $8,279 per student in 10-11 from all funds compared to the statewide average of just over $8,700. So we're spending about 5% less than the state average. And one thing that's always interesting to look at is by these functional categories that you see listed on the slide, starting with instruction, going the rest of the way down the slide, you can see how we allocate those resources. And so we spent a greater percentage, almost 3% more, of our total expenditures on direct classroom instruction than the statewide average. And then the other item I have highlighted in red on here is the central administration category, where we spend less than half the amount of money per student compared to the statewide average. This is basically the same information, only it shows how, in terms of percentages, how we allocate our resources. And again, you can see a greater percentage of our overall expenditures are allocated to classroom instruction versus the state. And then, again, on that central administration category, less than half the statewide percentage of our budget is spent on central administration costs. A couple of other points out of the AEIS report on the expenditure data. The instructional expenditure ratio, this is a computation that actually takes expenditures and looks at expenditures from instruction, library services, staff development, guidance and counseling, and takes all of the expenditures, the operating expenditures from those functional categories, and then divides them by the overall total expenditures, and to come up with this instructional expenditure ratio. And you can see we have a much higher expenditure ratio for instructional purposes than the statewide average. In terms of fund balance, as a percent of our total budget, again, this was the 10-11 fiscal year. Our fund balance was 19.3% of our budget, and that compared to a statewide total of 21.8%. And with that, we will be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Dr. Reich.
Thank you, President Barron. Ms. Powell, I was just curious, I hadn't realized the difference between membership and enrollment. Can you tell me what the enrollment number is?
Yes, I can. Our enrollment number in October of 2011 was 64,705 students. So that number is about 113 higher than the membership number.
And that's all directly tied to attendance?
Right.
Yeah, okay.
And the kids who are enrolled but not in membership are students who attend our district less than 2 hours a day. They may attend just to receive a special ed service is typically what we find that is. Or it may be someone that's in a credit recovery program.
Oh, okay. Very good. Thank you.
No other board members with questions? I do have one comment card from the audience. When I call your name, please step to the podium. You will have 5 minutes to speak. Trustees will not reply to the speaker. Card is from Christina Nason. Subject is the AEIS. Good evening.
Good evening, President Barron, Dr. Cavazos, members of the board. I have a 9th grade daughter. She's been in your district since she was in 1st grade, and she's designated gifted and talented. On page 6 of the AEIS report, it says that during the 2010-2011 school year, you spent more than $12 million on your gifted and talented program. The report further reflects that you spent $195 per student, more than twice the state average. Anyone who has a GT child in this district knows that this is not true. The Texas Education Code and Administrative Code, as reflected in the Texas State Plan for the Education of Gifted and Talented Students, sets forth minimum GT curriculum and instruction requirements. These are required by law to be provided grades kindergarten through 12. And this is not one of your unfunded mandates. Every year you receive extra funds for each GT child in your district. About $1.8 million total dollars per year. The funds are earmarked to help you comply with these gifted and talented state laws. And yet, as my public information request revealed, these funds are being spent on secondary teacher salaries. This spending does not match your vision and your mission. And to quote this board, the vision of the Arlington Independent School District is to be globally acknowledged as a premier school district. The mission of the Arlington Independent School District is to empower and engage all students to be contributing, responsible citizens reaching their maximum potential through relevant, innovative, and rigorous learning experiences. Until this board addresses its GT expenditures, the strategic plan will be meaningless. GT student needs, particularly in grades K through 8, are profoundly ignored. My daughter's in 9th grade, so I'm not here for her today. I'm here for the kindergartners, the class of 2026. It is my sincere hope that your upcoming curriculum audit will directly address the district's failure to spend its GT dollars on its GT students. These GT designated kids are the district's best and brightest. The same kids that score exemplary on your precious tests every single year. You receive millions of dollars in their names. Please start spending it on them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nason. I have no further cards. The public hearing on academic excellence indicator system is now closed. That brings us to the open forum for agenda items. This is a routine part of the school board's agenda for regularly scheduled meetings. This segment of the meeting provides citizens with an opportunity to share their views with the trustees on items that are on the agenda tonight. It is not intended to be a discussion or a debate, and trustees will not reply to the speakers. Derogatory comments aimed at an individual will not be tolerated. Personnel matters are not appropriate subjects for the open forum. I have one card tonight from the audience. When your name is called, please step to the podium. You will have 5 minutes to speak. A lighted timer on the podium will assist you in pacing your presentation. A yellow light will illuminate when there is 1 minute left for you to complete your presentation. And when the red light comes on and the buzzer sounds, please end your presentation. The card is from Mr. David Kozad. His subject is Protection Systems for Schools. Evening, Mr. Kozad.
Evening, President and Superintendent. I attended the off-site meeting at Coker Barbecue, and I felt that I was not completely able to talk, especially to the rest of the board, and complete my remarks. So here's the rest of it. My name is David E. Kozad. I'm a former U.S. Marine Corps officer, software systems technologist, and a short time a high school math teacher. I'm a father of 4, grandfather of 3. 2 of my grandchildren will be attending as students in Arlington ISD in about a year or 2. I'm a speaker for a local Democratic group. We believe the demand for more guns in schools will only increase the lethality of the schools and increase death and injury to students and teachers. We don't believe that arming teachers or security personnel with firearms will decrease the likelihood of death and injury to students and teachers during armed intruders incidents. When more bullets are fired into a target-rich environment, more bullets will hit those targets, and those targets are children who are easily damaged or killed by bullets. Lurid tales by firearm advocates of math deaths in schools, such as the Beslan of Russia, are highly unlikely here. Why? Because those incidents were part of a civil war being fought inside of Russia and the other countries. The situation we have in this country is one of small groups of 1 to 3 individuals who are armed with firearms attacking a public facility, including schools, malls, movie theaters, churches, and while very distressful and terrible to witness, are rare relative to the number of occurrences in a country of this size and armed as we are. The solution to this threat must consider the following factors. Incidents are rare. Incidents can be very violent and deadly. The number of individuals creating the incident is small, usually 1 or 2. Protective systems must be able to sit and wait, possibly forever, to respond to an incident. Protective systems must not cause more injuries and death than the original threat caused. Protective systems must be cost effective. Namely, it cannot overwhelm the financial system supporting the public school system. Protective systems must not increase liability of the school system. We think that only non-lethal weapons should be utilized in a school environment. Below are the solutions we believe will result in increased protection of students and teachers and reduce lethality in schools. Also, firearm weapons advocates are insisting on immediate solutions to be adopted and expound that only firearms can meet those immediate needs for security. However, there are many non-lethal weapons and systems that are immediately available and will be available soon. New non-lethal technologies are coming online at a very rapid pace, and one of the most promising for schools, churches, public meeting places is swarm robotics. This is where my expertise pops up. While current research is trying to design swarm robotics for highly technical purposes such as building space stations, swarm robotics can be easily designed to protect schools and other public places from intruders and highly armed attackers. School administrators should insist on the development of such protective systems to protect their students, their teachers, and administrators themselves from the 300 million guns present in our society. Non-lethal weapons will increase the possibility of being used against an intruder, even if students and teachers are in the area of the intruders, not kill or maim students or teachers. And it will reduce costs, especially liability insurance, of training, use, and maintenance in comparison with firearms. I have a list here. I believe all of you have a copy. The various types of non-lethal weapons. You have tasers. There's electrode and water techniques. The electrode is the one that fires the two electrodes. You see that all the time in the movies. Which one is that? 1 minute. And you have the water technique, which is just now coming on due, and that doesn't have an electrode that would cause wounds. Things like pepper ball, and that system there is like a paintball guns. These are available immediately. You also have beanbag rounds, but I do not recommend those for school environment. They are too deadly for children to be around. And then you have swarm robotics. I have a list of references that you can look up on the internet, and it'll show you what all these different systems are. These are the systems we should be considering, not firearms in the school districts. Too many kids would end up being dead from our own protective systems if we use firearms. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cozad. Next item on the agenda is an action item. Dr. Cavazos, consider all matters incident and related to issuance and sale of Arlington Independent School District unlimited tax school building bonds.
Thank you, President Barron. This time I'd like to ask Cindy Powell to give us a presentation regarding the sale of bonds. Cindy?
Good evening, President Barron, board members, Dr. Cavazos. I'm actually just going to give the introduction on this and turn it over then to George Williford with First Southwest. This particular item is to consider approval of an order to authorize the issuance of unlimited tax school building bonds, Series 2013, not to exceed $18,660,000. The Arlington ISD voters approved a bond proposition in the amount of $197.5 million in November of 2009. And since then, we have actually had 5 separate bond issues over the course of the last 3 years. This is now our 6th bond sale. There were a couple of years where we had actually two sales within 1 year. Out of that $197.5 million authorization. The Bond Advisory Committee that put that original package together recommended that bonds be sold to provide for new construction, technology upgrades, fine arts purchases, and maintenance needs throughout the district and transportation needs for new buses. So this evening we do have with us George Williford with First Southwest to bring the details of our bond sale. So,
Thank you, Mr. Barron, Dr. Cavazos, members of the board. You should have information which was distributed, a book, and as Ms. Powell indicated, this bond issue is $18.66 million of the overall authorization, and I'll note that after sale of this amount, the district will have $17.61 million remaining out of the full amount that was voted in 2009. The bonds were actually offered yesterday by an underwriting group composed of Southwest Securities, Wells Fargo, and Stevens Incorporated. And so the interest rates were set, everything ready for consideration and approval by the board this evening. I will mention that in the process of preparation for the issue and so on, we had rating discussions with both Standard & Poor's and Moody's, and the district's very good bond ratings were affirmed, which are AA by Standard & Poor's and AA1 by Moody's. In addition, the issue will have the guarantee of the permanent school fund, and that automatically carries a AAA rating. So the district is assured all the way around because of that enhancement, as well as those very high underlying ratings of being able to achieve the lowest rates that might be available in the market. Interest rates are still extremely favorable. There's been a little bit of volatility preceding the end of the year and then right after, but we're still in a range that's literally historically low rates. With regard to this issue, the material I handed out, like I said, it was 18.66, and that's comprised of 9.2 million of technology with a shorter repayment, and then $1.8 million of 10-year assets, 2.8 of 12-year transportation related, and then $4.860 million of facilities purposes that would go out through 25-year maturity. The thing that I know the board is most interested in, and hopefully will be good news for the public as well, is that the effective interest rate achieved on this issue was 2.594%. And as I had indicated earlier to Ms. Powell, I went back to research prior issues by the district because I had a very high suspicion that that was probably the lowest rate we'd ever achieved. And in fact, except for the Q-scabs, which are 0%, this was literally the lowest market rate that the district had ever achieved. Last year was not too far off. It's 2.723, but this is just indicative of how low rates are and the very good timing for the district to have had these bonds marketed. And with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions, and otherwise, Jeff Gobus with McCall Parkhurst is here, their bond counsel to the district, and he can also provide any guidance or answers to the process for authorization.
I have no lights, so thank you. Mr. Hogg.
President Barron, I move to approve the adoption of an order authorizing the issuance and sale of the Arlington Independent School District Unlimited Tax School Building Bonds, Series 2013, and approving all other matters pertaining thereto.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Hogg, second by Ms. Sullins. Is there any discussion on the bond? Please vote. All voting in the affirmative. Motion passes. Thank you very much. Okay, that takes us to our discussion action items. Dr. Cavazos.
Thank you, President Barron. This time we'd like to present, as we do on a yearly basis, our schools that will be considered for closing for transfers. And ask Ms. Cindy Powell to give a presentation and share with us some information about our school's transfer policy. Ms. Powell.
As Dr. Cavazos says, we come to the board every year at this time. This is the first step in beginning our transfer process for next year, for the 2013-14 year. And the first step or order of business is to identify those schools that will not be open to transfers, and that's what this particular discussion action item is. Before we get into that, though, I want to share some numbers with you. There's a lot of numbers here. This particular slide breaks down the different types of transfers that we have processed and approved in our district and shows you a 3-year history of those. This particular year, the 12-13 year, we have a total of 7,639 transfers that have been approved to date, and that's actually down a little bit from the previous year. In total, the first 3 lines represent in-district transfers, and there are a total of 7,158 in-district transfers this year in our district. Out-of-district transfers, we have a total of 255, and that's a combination of employees who have transferred their children who live outside this district into the Arlington ISD and other individuals who live outside our district. We also have AYP transfers totaling 226 students this year. We are very pleased this year to come to the board and recommend that we leave all of our schools open with the exception of these 4 elementary schools that will have new boundaries next year. This is a change for the district. We are very pleased that we can offer choice to our families. And this is something that we've spoken with our principals about. They are very anxious to embrace students who want to choose to come to their campuses. So tonight we are recommending that the only schools that will be closed to transfer next year are these 4 that will have new boundaries next year. The other schools will all be open as space is available in the schools. And that will be on a building by building and at the elementary level an actual grade by grade basis. So here again, you can see that we're not recommending to close any junior highs or any high schools next year. The only exception to a student having the opportunity to transfer into a closed school would be if the student is already transferred into a school that is now closed to new transfers, that student can remain transferred to the school. And likewise, if the student has a sibling that is already on transfer to a campus that will be closed, and again, it would just be the 4 that have the new boundaries, then that sibling can also transfer to the school. In terms of our transfer procedures, we will begin processing transfers on March the 2nd, and we will allow parents to camp in our parking lot in advance of that March 2nd date. There is a $50 camping fee that we impose. Parents can begin that day, March 25th, to camp at 8 a.m. They can remain there through March the 2nd. On March 2nd, we will begin accepting requests for transfers. And that begins at 8 a.m. here in the administration building. We will actually only process requests during the month of March for in-district transfers, okay? So anyone can come in beginning March the 2nd, whether you live in the district or outside the district, and submit a request for a transfer. At that time, though, we will only begin processing in-district transfer requests. And again, the in-district requests, or all transfers actually, are granted only on a space available basis. If a parent wants to transfer their child to a school and that school or the particular grade that they're interested in that school does not have any openings, the parent may put the child's name on a waiting list at that time in March. They can actually put the child's name on up to two different campus waiting lists. And then again, all out-of-district transfer requests that are submitted to us in March will go on a waiting list. The transfer period or processing period will actually close in March 28th, and that's when we will stop processing new in-district transfer requests. After that point, every request goes on a waiting list. In August then, we will send these lists to the schools, and we'll try to do it in late July, and give the schools then the opportunity to begin working through those wait lists again as they have space available to identify students that they can admit into their buildings. The slide shows the priority order that this board has set previously for processing transfer requests. In-district transfer requests are first priority. The second priority are out-of-district employees. And then the third priority are those individuals who may live outside Arlington ISD but inside the city of Arlington. And then the fourth group would be those families who live outside of the district and outside the city of Arlington. And again, I want to stress that that in March we will take requests for any transfer, but the only ones that actually get processed or approved at that time are the in-district transfers. In terms of the fees, there are some fees associated with transfers. In-district transfers that are processed during March are $65 a year, and any time after March 28th, that fee is $100. Out-of-district employees and individuals who live outside of AISD but in the city of Arlington will pay a $100 transfer fee. All other out-of-district transfers will pay a tuition fee that's computed at $1,898. With that, I will be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Mrs. Pena.
I really don't have any questions. I just want to commend you. This is probably the clearest presentation on how the transfers are going to work that I've seen in the whole time I've been on the board.
That's good. I had a lot of coaching this is not my area, so I had to get a lot of coaching on this.
But it's very clear and concise,
you.
and I thank you for that.
Ms. Collins?
Thank you, President Barron. I would like to also commend the district on the clarity of the presentation, but also to open up so many options for parents so that school choice has been a tradition in Arlington schools really for a long time. We're starting to hear about it a lot now when we're in Austin and so forth about opening school choice, and Arlington has been way ahead on school choice. I'm really glad to see that we're even taking it more aggressively and making sure that all students, all campuses are open. I was curious on one of the procedural things you had. The parents could put their names on 2 waiting lists. Why 2?
And again, it's an effort to allow choice, and it may be that maybe their second choice actually becomes available, and they may decide to go ahead and go with that second choice rather than wait on the first one. But again, this is an effort to try to be flexible and give parents as many options as possible. And it may be that their first option is just not ever going to open up.
Right. I was wondering if the number, if 2 is sufficient in case their top 2 schools couldn't make it, but they still, especially with elementary schools that are very close by, geographic area that they may have a choice. I was just wondering if 2 was sufficient to cover the parents.
We can consider others. I think historically we've used 2 for many years, and I don't know that we've had complaints from parents. That you want to come? Okay. No complaints. Sandy says I'm not going there.
Okay, thank you. So the 2 has been sufficient, is what I'm hearing. So.
Right.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Dr. Rice?
Ms. Sillens covered everything. Just to expand, we have been a choice district for, do we know how long? I mean, decades, safe to say?
Safe to
easily?
say decades, yeah.
And we, as a board, as a functioning unit, are doing everything we can to educate our legislators that we've been very aggressive on choice and an innovator of choice for a long, long time, even though now it's becoming the big buzz down in Austin. So, and thanks for the presentation. It's great.
Sure.
Mr. Hogg?
Thank you, President Barron. Ms. Powell, it was very precise, but I'm going to throw some wrenches in it. And not anything bad. I just do have some clarification questions. On the exceptions, one thing that wasn't listed that I thought in the past was an exception was if that teacher was currently at a school that was closed, no matter what, they were allowed to bring their child to that school.
I believe that the teachers follow the same transfer policy that every other student does. And
So
we
even
try
if
to
they're-
accommodate them as we can.
So even if they are a teacher at that school and they want their child to go to that elementary school and there's no space, their child wouldn't be allowed in there?
Well, we try to work with them, but we have not in the past listed exceptions specifically for teachers.
Okay. That was an assumption I had, so that's good on clarification for that. Now let's go into, because I'm one, I'll tell you, luckily in this position we have the power to change our minds. I think we all up here a couple years ago pushed for choice. I think it's a great thing. I want more choice. I pushed very hard for that tuition to be in there, and now I'm kind of leaning on the side of how do we pull that tuition out to become more of a district of choice and enable more. So that's kind of where some of my questions are going here, and I'd ask my colleagues to think about, is that tuition the right thing we should be charging? In year one, I was 100% sure that was the right thing for a little protection because it's all about risk of a district, and we've seen some increase, but are we losing money by not bringing those other students in, and could we open it up more and not have a tuition? So I would ask Ms. Powell, on these wait lists, if you already have a child, let's say you're out of district, and I'm sorry, I hate playing the what-if game. Let's say you have a child already in one of our elementary schools, Adams Elementary, brand new, let's just talk about Adams. If you already have a child in Adams Elementary and you move outside the district, move to one of our surrounding neighborhoods, would you then get waitlisted even though you're out of district, or would you be guaranteed because you have a sibling in that school already?
You are allowed to remain in that school for the remainder of the year, and then after that, you become a transfer like anyone else and go through that normal transfer process.
Okay, and because that student was already in the school, would they be, I don't want to use the word grandfathered, would they be allowed to stay in that school? So let's say, example, they live in Arlington, they move to Grand Prairie, but they want to continue having their child go to Adams Elementary. Would they then go automatically to the wait list and that child's, I don't say out, but.
Yeah, and it won't be automatically go to the wait list. If they move, say they move in the middle of the year, okay? Then they can finish out the school year at their,
do they have to pay a transfer fee at that point? For the
at that point, they have
rest
to
of
pay the $100 transfer fee, okay? But then at the end of that year, then they are treated as any other transfer request. And so then they would come in and yes, you know, if there are openings, then they can transfer back into that campus. And if there are not openings, then their name would go on that wait list.
But if they move within the district, they're automatically guaranteed space.
If they move within the district, then again, they can finish out the year at their home campus, and then they have to be treated as a transfer request that next year.
But if you already have one child in the school and a younger sibling's coming up, they're automatically guaranteed in there?
That's for transfers. Once you've transferred in, if you have a sibling that's coming.
Right, so if I transfer child A and they get into Adams Elementary and child B's coming up.
Then that child B then can transfer as
guaranteed,
well.
even if we don't have space?
Yes.
But if you move and that child's already been in that school, they're not guaranteed.
And you know, and here's how I look at that. If you move, then there may be another family who moves into your home who needs that spot. And so again, we're trying to accommodate within, you know, neighborhood boundaries as best we can while allowing as much flexibility and choice as possible.
Okay. And that's fair. I can understand that. I still, you know, kind of think if they're in there, they already have a child in there, common sense wise, and yours makes total sense also, but how do we keep them in that same school and retain that transfer of where they're coming in, because we're already granting someone access. If you have one transferred in, you live outside of the zone, but you have child A that's in 3rd grade and child B's coming into kindergarten and it's full, child B's guaranteed into kindergarten, correct? Doesn't make sense. I mean, that's where I see a little quandary in how we're tackling that. I think it's important if child A is already in school to be able to bring child B in also, but I think it's that flip side we need to think about. The other side is, you know, I understand waiting until August to notify parents because we've got to see who's moving into the area and the district. But I think if we can give them any pre-notice, because a lot of parents don't like to wait till August to say, oh, all of a sudden, here's where you're going to school. So I think we're losing out on some parents coming into the district.
We are going to attempt to back that up. We actually have had some conversation with some secondary school principals who process a large number of transfers. And we asked them how that would work if we were to move that up to, say, June. And they have expressed to us that it really is hard for them, especially now with AYP transfers factored in, to allow very many transfers in prior to scheduled pickup day. So they said from their perspective, they would prefer to wait until that scheduled pickup time. Elementary schools, we may be able to advance that a little bit. And so that's something that we are planning to work towards.
And I commend the district for really, I know you guys put a lot of work into really opening up our schools this year. So I really do commend the district because I think we have been, as my colleagues have said, we've offered choice for a long time, different elements of it. And I think the more choice we offer, listen, I love the neighborhood of school as much as everyone else, but parents this day and age, it's not the #1 priority for them. They want to send their child to a school for whatever reason they want. There's tons of reasons. They could go to church with someone else. They could be friends with someone they know. You know, I know my parents' next door neighbor went to a different school because they liked the kindergarten teacher over at that school. That was the whole reason. They transferred over. They knew that kindergarten teacher. So there's a ton of reasons. I know there's teachers at Lamar who want their children to go, you know, they live in South Arlington, want them to go to some of the schools that feed into Lamar, just so that they're eventually in Lamar with them. There's all kinds of rules on there. What would occur, as the district and staff talk through, what would happen if we didn't have that $1,800 transfer fee? I still think that fee should be higher than people within our district, but $1,800, I think it's a pretty fair rate. It's a lot cheaper in a private school this day and age, but what if that was decreased, and what does the district feel that would occur?
We do receive state funding
Right.
on kids who transfer into our district from another, from outside the district. And if you increase your average daily attendance by 1 in state funding, you generate another $5,261, something to that effect. And so we do receive funding from the state for them. As long as you are able to bring those kids in within existing staff and resources, then you're really not incurring significant
Right.
additional costs by having those kids
And
here.
with our wait list, we're not incurring really additional because they're only going to open spots, correct?
Correct.
I look at my,
So that was for information only. If we want to talk about the tuition, we have to bring that back as a separate item. And we can do that, but we can't change that tonight.
oh, I'm not asking to change tonight,
Okay.
but we can sure talk about it tonight.
Well,
As it's listed in our presentation as $1,800 on there, and the tuition's listed, and here's what we're charging, I think by all means, the Texas Open Meetings Act, we can discuss that
right, but
tonight.
if we're going to change it, we have to bring it back, so
I
why
agree
not wait till then?
I would agree with that, but under the Texas Open Meetings Act, and if our lawyer needs to come up, I definitely think if we wanted to talk about that, we could talk about that tonight.
Yeah, that was the opinion I just got. We could
Okay.
talk about it, but we can't do anything with it.
Well, I agree with that, and I don't think it's listen, this is a new swing, like I said. We're allowed to change our mind on some ideas, and I've been a pretty big fan of that tuition, and just recently I've started looking and saying, is that the right step? And so I don't think it's something we need to change tonight, and luckily our legal said we can't change it tonight, but I think it's something we need to definitely think about and talk about and maybe bring up. It's not going to be something that comes into play until this summer, but I think we definitely, if we do decide to go that route, we need to have it done before the end of the year so that parents can start planning accordingly. That's all the questions I had. Thank you, Ms. Powell.
The transfer fee, that's a sunk cost for the person. If their child never gets a transfer, that money's just gone? Or do we pay it back?
No, you don't actually pay it until your transfer is processed. And so if you come in March and you put your name on a waiting list, and then in August or June or whenever it is, you are actually called and you get a spot, you still will pay that $65 fee because you signed up in March versus the higher $100 fee for individuals who come in and request that transfer after March 28th.
I see. Okay, and one other thing is that we're still processing transfers right up until the day school starts and even afterwards?
We close them when school starts? First day of school for a period of time, and then we open them back up for 2 weeks, beginning at the end of September. For 2 weeks, at the end of September, we open them back up.
That's it, thank you.
Thank you.
And that was a discussion action item, so I need a motion on the schools closed to transfers.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Pena, second by Mr. Hibbs. Is there further discussion? And to clarify what Dr. Rice just said, it's for the schools that were listed in the presentation.
Yes, it is.
All schools are open except
Yes, Adams,
Atherton, Hale, and Johns.
Correct.
Okay, please vote. All voting in the affirmative, motion passes. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda, Dr. Cavasso, is consider strategic plan summary metrics.
Thank you, President Barron. As part of our strategic plan, an important component of that is to have the appropriate measures and metrics and indices to keep track of our progress with our strategic plan. And so, in consultation with our consultant, Elaine Say, Dr. Carter has done exceptional work on summary metrics, and he has a presentation tonight that will be very important in keeping track of our progress for our strategic plan and reporting to our public in a very transparent way the efforts we're doing with our strategic plan and our improvement efforts. So, Dr. Carter.
Good evening again. What prompted me, of course, is to really look at the workload that I was taking on my shoulders and my department. And so before the winter break, Christmas break, I decided to, okay, how are we going to actually manage all these things? And so looking at Ms. Say's overall commitment that she had to the board is then, okay, what does that mean when you translate down to all the different indices that we would have? And so what that does, it comes down to 1,441 indices or statistics that you would actually see, any one of which could prompt a specialized goal, okay? So then I was thinking, well, the burden is not just on me, it's on all my colleagues as to what kinds of things, what kind of directions we might take, and then having the limited resources in order to carry it out successfully. So it was, how do we pare this down? How do we help the board look at all these things in a little bit more of a summary fashion? And so in consultation with Ms. Say, we got it down to 104 summary indices. Now, it seems like just by itself, that sounds like a lot, but on just one page, you can have easily 40 indices on just one page. You know, the table that we present usually for accountability, think of the number of pieces of statistics that are in there, okay? It's just one page. But it's just the idea that any one of those things could prompt a goal or something like that. So the reason that there are the 1,441, here's an example with number 7, which is the metric number 7, the 4-year high school graduation rate. Well, one of the parameters was about breaking it out by the ethnicities and any other accountability groups and whatnot. And of course, the state is talking right now more in terms of 11 groups, the all students and then these other groups, ethnicities, and then the LEP, the special ed, and of course economically disadvantaged. That's 11 pieces right there on just one thing. So when you put that with all the different ones, all the different pieces together, like on this one, percent of class of 2012 that graduated on time, just that one, there's 11 indices just for that. So for the entire area, it's 22. Now, what we're trying to do, just like it says right there, there's a certain recommendation. What we're doing is, okay, for every one of those 28, what would be the summary indices? Okay, so I don't know how much detail you want me to go into all this, but let's highlight some things. Like with the very first one of the major ones, dealing with STAR and EOC, 40 indices. Now, it's just two groups, all students, economic disadvantaged. There are 5 subjects, so that's 10 with just that one area of passing. And then you're going to have 10 for the advanced level, okay? And then you look at all of those compared to the state. Immediately, you have now 40, okay? It's manageable, and so it does look like, okay, that'll be some very important kind of information. It's a good summary for the entire thing. No, you don't have it all the ethnicities and everything else, but that doesn't mean you don't get that. You will still get the entire booklet of documents of all the other stats, 1,441. But for the purposes of generating discussion, at least initial discussion, this is what it would be, and this is what Ms. Say will be presenting in her report. In the second performance on reading, that's with the grades K and 1. It's just the 4 indices for each grade level and each subject.
Dr. Carter, let us break in with a question.
Okay.
Dr. Reich.
I just figured that there's just so much. I'd rather address it while we're at number 1, number 2 kind of thing. With regards to all the data that is going to be captured that's not necessarily reported in this fashion, is that data still going to be utilized for guiding curriculum forward, achievement gaps, and those types of things? I just know you've got a tremendous amount of work to sift this out, to do the presentation of the strategic plan metrics, but you're still monitoring and utilizing and doing all the analytics on all of it.
Yes.
Still, right?
Yes, yes.
Gosh,
And,
a lot of
and like I
stuff.
said, that's where, yes, with my colleagues in curriculum, it's looking at all those different pieces. Now, some statistics might be so few students that it may not be a large strategic move to make, but a lot of the statistics will. And of course, with the first tier of we got to beat the state, and with those comparisons with the state, that's certainly going to generate an awful lot of discussion. It's going to be much more in terms of diagnostics. That's why the summary indices will be like the first tier of discussion. What pops out immediately? And then for other areas, it'll be digging down, digging down, digging down, and that'll be over time.
And the follow-up is, as far as passing, what defines passing? Is that the state's?
The state standard.
The state's
Right.
passing standard?
Right.
Okay. Okay. And right now, currently, do we have any passing standard numbers for like the first wave of STAR or EOCs?
We'll be reporting that and giving that to you for your work session at your next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's typical that when they roll out a new set of alphabet soup here, the passing threshold is quite low to achieve a passing score. Is that right?
It already is, yes.
Yeah, and that's something that we'll have to be very astute about.
And
'cause
that's one of those
I don't
things-
want to celebrate passing when it's not, when it
Well,
might be 30%.
I really think we need to look at the fact that passing is a moving target too, isn't it?
Yeah.
It changes every year.
No, not in terms of the actual, what the passing standard represents. But yes, it can, for instance, the next year's test might be relatively easy. Therefore, you have to get more items correct in order to represent the same level of achievement. But as far as your scale score, it's set for 2 years. But it's a sobering thing when we say to the curriculum people, I remember just having a discussion, and they said, oh my gosh, you mean this is the last year for phase 1. 2013 is the second year of phase 1, and then it goes up. Yeah. So then by the time we're really getting into all this, we're going to start talking about the next level. So even though I say 1,441, it's going to be more than that because we're going to need the statistics of how many pass the next level, because that's going to be the main thing for next year. Okay?
Thank you.
Happy times.
Yeah.
Should I go ahead? Okay. With number 3, we have the norm reference assessment in reading, mathematics, and science in grade 2. And basically, that is taking just one of those, and that is how many students are on grade level on both together. And the reason both together is that's a little bit more synonymous with the idea of how many kids are on track for going up, not just on one or the other, but total. And that's just like with graduation. How many kids are on track for graduating? And there's all these things they have to meet to be on track. So that's why we're thinking with just combining those. Number 4, participation and success in rigorous courses, 5 indices. You see the percent initially enrolled as one of those very important ones we're looking for. And then, of course, passing rate of all students based on initially enrolled. Now, that's a different kind of stat than what is typical because we know there tends to be a little bit of a dropout from the rigorous courses after the first 6 weeks. So and what the desire is to try to keep them in there, we need an index of initially enrolled as the denominator and then seeing how successful the kids are. The number 5 is participation and success in college admissions and readiness assessments. And you have the list all there, 4 indices. You have the percent of graduating seniors taking a college-bound test. That's just straight up. The percent of graduating seniors reaching at least one college-ready standard on the SAT or the ACT. Percent of students obtaining at least a 3 on an AP exam. And also that would also include IB, but sometimes IB is both 2 or 3. It depends on which test. And then lastly, the average PSAT scores of our sophomores. Again, all students. The number 6.
I have a quick question on, is that okay just to, okay. On the SAT, ACT with seniors, Does that mean seniors, current seniors that took those exams as juniors or only as seniors? Or are we capturing any junior data? How does that translate?
We can get a file of the graduating seniors. And what happens is then it's their best score. And that's what would be the basis of our statistics. Because it's the senior year that most of them take the SAT and the ACT. And some of them will take multiple times. And what is captured and what we get from the College Board and also from the ACT is the file that just gives their best scores.
And then you will still receive all of that data broken down by campuses and compared to national, and that, as far as SAT, ACT type things.
We will have that
It's not reflected
information.
here, but-
Breaking it down by the campuses is, remember, that was one of the parameters that Ms. Hay said she was not going to be giving. But yeah, we'll have it. So
Well, that's
just
what I meant.
add that onto the 1,441. But yes.
We don't want you to get bored.
Yeah. No way.
Thank you.
Okay.
Dr. Carter, on that same item 5, and if I look at the second bullet, percent of graduating seniors reaching at least one college-ready standard on SAT or ACT, should that also have AccuPlacer there? I mean, or
It certainly can.
Okay.
Yeah, it was just one of the things that they said that for SAT, ACT in particular, but AccuPlacer is certainly broader, so we'll get more of the students participating in that.
And it would also capture the students that are career tech bound.
That's right.
In
That's
larger
right.
numbers, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think one of the things about AccuPlacer, and it's worth looking at, there's not as much research about college ready that's behind it, so that there is with SAT and ACT. And so they've set those sort of standards. AccuPlacer, it's not quite as tight, but nevertheless, we still do some estimates, or the latest, whatever they have, of some kind of indication of what that is. Number 6, on track for high school completion in 4 years. This is just simply the percent of all high school students on track to graduate on time. This is probably the most important index of all, and the most difficult of all, because it's for any one student. Did they pass all the core courses? Do they have the number of credits to go to the next level? Do they pass all required state assessments together? All of those things together. Any one of those things that they might be short on, it's regarded as, no, they're not on time. But gathering all those things, it's not like just one place. It's pulling all those things together and then seeing for every one of them. Freshmen have a different set than the sophomores, as with the juniors, they have a different set, different state assessment requirement, everything else. So pulling all that, but I think more than anything else, that is one index that we should be looking at on an ongoing basis, and a little bit more of live data. Hopefully we can get down to the point where we actually have one index that actually shows progress reports and whether or not kids are still on time. So every 3 weeks would be very good, and that's something we're going to try to aim for.
Can I get a clarification? I noticed there's a distinction in data sets between those that have fulfilled all course requirements versus those that have met the requirements to date. Is that just a typo, or is that an actual separate category?
Which one are you? I'm sorry.
Okay. I'm looking at the detail, actually, not the summary. Under the detail, let's see if I can scroll back up. At the top, the data to be reported column, it starts as percent of class 2014 on track to date have fulfilled all course requirements, and it goes 2015 fulfilled all course, 2016 fulfilled all course. Then it has 2014 have met requirements to date is the next one. It would be on our handout, page 17 at the top is where it starts being a different nomenclature.
Oh, okay. First of all, this is for a little bit more of breaking down. It's for each one of the classes.
Right.
the class of 2014, for instance, they don't have the EOC requirements, so they have a different thing, to date. That's what I was talking about, with all the things up to that point. They haven't graduated yet. They're juniors. Yeah, they're juniors for the most part. And so just to date, it's where are they? Okay. I'm not sure if I'm answering or I understand your question.
Well, the parenthetical part is what I have the question over. In parentheses, there's, at the beginning of these, there's those sections that I read that say between have fulfilled all course requirements, but then the parentheses change to have met requirements to date. And it seems like it's the same repeat of 2014, 15, 16, et cetera.
That's just, that's a typo.
That is a typo?
That's a typo.
Okay.
It's all requirements.
I just figured
Yes.
maybe
No.
it is something between, like graduation versus AYP and completion. It was another one of those little tricky things. So
No,
it's, okay,
no, I'm
good.
sorry. It's everything. So
So we
when
can
it comes
just cross
to
that
class
off.
of 2015 and 2016, that includes the EOC until state legislature makes a change.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, for number 7, college enrollment rates and college graduation rates. And this is going all the way back, and you see from that, from the long list, it goes all the way back to the class of 2007, I believe it is. And it's getting this from the National Student Clearinghouse and going all the way back to how each of those classes have done as far as enrolling into college. And then of all of those that, might have, like 2007, if they graduate on time, what's our percent? We're not going to have that obviously, for classes of 2011, 2012. But that's just additional information that will be important to see. So we have the percent of graduating students in classes of the last 6 years obtaining the bachelor's degree, percent of students that enrolled in college after graduating from AISD by cohort, that's all 5 of those, and the percent entering college who did not have to take a remedial course. Now, that is subject to the availability through the Texas Coordinating Board. And whether or not we're able to grab that file, we know we can get aggregate stuff. We don't know if we can actually pare it down to the information to the individual student level so we can see exactly what that is. Number 8 is the student engagement in extra and co-curricular activities. One index, percent of all students enrolled in those particular courses. We know that this is just a preliminary, that's going to be expanded later to include all those things that might be outside of school. But as far as just getting a baseline immediately right now, it's really how many are participating in all these other kind of extra and co-curricular courses. For number 9, the instructional practices related to the instructional model. Technically speaking, that won't be until next year because the instructional model has to be determined first, and then we see how they compare against that. But you know what? Any good instruction is still able to be identifiable by students, and so the surveys will certainly look at some of those basic elements to get at least some kind of a baseline there. And again, that's with our graduating seniors being certified, surveyed to identify those. In number 10, student attributes of lifelong learners, and there's a list of some of those lifelong learning. This is in deep consultation with the Gibson Consulting Group because it's one of those things of what are some of those attributes that do represent lifelong learning. And we can presume all kinds of things, and they have no relationship whatsoever. Also, there's no way of validating whether what we come up with. But one of the things that we're identifying is just like what's up here, the percent of graduating seniors surveyed indicating that their teachers help them develop skills for lifelong learning. And again, how you would actually put that in very specific terms in a survey is important, because you don't want it just being something real murky that then you get some data on it, and what do you do with it? And, everything that's being asked of students, it's how can you interpret that and then put that into some kind of action form. So, and I think the Gibson Consulting Group is going to be very good with helping us identify what those items might be. The number 11, discipline offenses, there are the 3 indices: percent of students committed criminal offenses, percent of students disrupting classroom instruction, and then comparing to the city crime rate for a comparable group. Number 12, college enrollment rates and college graduation rates. Within 6 years of high school graduation, we have the 8. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. That was the same. Well, let's see here. For
There is a
12,
sequencing error between the summary slides versus the actual things. That's what
Yes.
I'm looking at up here, too.
I sure am. I guess I drowned in the 1,441. Yes, number 12 is supposed to be the graduate survey itself, the class of 2012. And of course, what you have, I think in what your sheet has, is the percent of class of 2012 indicating on the survey that the high school prepared them for post-high school pursuits. And that
Dr.
should have
Carter.
been,
Wally?
yes,
Do you want to put this up?
up on the
Yeah.
the
Mark,
data.
can you help us?
Yeah. Oh, yes. I see exactly. We need to go back to number 8, right? Later on, I'll explain exactly what happened. I know exactly what happened on this. Anyway, okay. Number 8. College-ready standard on Algebra 2 and English 3. Percent of class of 2015, that is our current sophomores really, meeting college-ready standard on both EOCs. Now, this might be one of those conditional things because depending on what the state legislature does, it may be a moot kind of stat. But we'll adjust the statistic according to whatever the state legislature comes up with. For number 9, students graduating with recommended or higher graduation plans. We usually get that from the AEIS report, which comes in much later, but we'll have to find out just exactly how we can see if the teams gets a lot of that information so we can pull it directly in time for the report in August.
I just make a note, that's another one of those things that's a question mark in this legislative session, that those terms
Yes.
might change.
Yes, I noticed one bill that particularly addressed that.
Yeah.
With number 10, CTHE, completion of the 6-year plan, and the student enrollment in CTHE coursework, which, college-related and not related. We have the percent, we have 6 indices, percent of class of 2018 with both a CTHE plan and are enrolled in CTHE coursework, college-related or not related, just the all students. And then the percent of all high school students enrolled in some CTHE courses. Again, both categories. Number of certificates earned, and the percent of students earning at least 1 certificate.
What's our goal? What's our metric on that? Is it 100% that all kids are going to have CTHE?
The objectives?
Yeah, the setting of the actual standards, if you will, that's another step. of how much growth we want to see from the baseline.
Clear as mud.
Yeah, well, in other words, we would have to set the standards that we want to meet in some of these that are applicable to setting standards.
Okay.
So in other words, if 50% of the students, do we want 60 or 70 in a period of time achieving that?
I just thought with the strategic plan, the whole CTHE thing was all 8th graders were going to be on a plan. So that's why I was thinking that that's automatically 100%.
Well, it's having the plan and are in coursework.
Okay.
That's, that's not necessarily, so that's where that comes into play.
Okay. So where it doesn't come into play, I guess, what would be considered not CTHE coursework? What would be examples where they would fall off?
If a lot of core would not necessarily be in there at all.
Okay.
So, but if they take something else, I'm not sure what the classifications are with the courses. I don't know if keyboarding, for instance, is part of that or not. It might be one of those non-college related courses, but with this one, it's either one kind of thing.
Okay.
And again, as I consult with Craig Wright about these things and getting a lot more delineation of how all of these things are classified, and then when we actually are instituting these things, then it'll be clearer to identify, okay, this student, it's this kind of condition that gives them a yes or a no. Okay.
Okay, thanks.
For the number 11, the graduate survey, again, that's a class of 2012. That puts us, that's almost, oh, not yet. 5 indices, and the percent of class of 2012 indicating on survey that that the high school prepared them for post-high school pursuits, and the percent of the class of 2013, that is our current seniors, indicating on the survey that the high school prepared them for what they plan to pursue by college and career intended pathways. And lastly, the percent of major local employers indicating that graduates they employed were well prepared by the district. And that's what the Turco and Associates consulting group is supposed to be pursuing for us. With 12 college enrollment rates and college graduate, we covered that one. We just didn't.
May I ask a question on that?
Yes.
It looks like we're defining college enrollment as only a 4-year college. When you say on the one index, percent of graduating students in classes of last 6 years that obtained a bachelor's degree.
Okay, that's only for going all the way back to the class of 2007. How many of them have actually got a degree in bachelor's degree? We're not sure exactly what the National Student Clearinghouse will give, but if they do give us about associate degrees, for instance, we certainly will use that.
Because then if you're measuring percent of entering into college who did not have to take a remedial course, is that measuring those who enrolled in the 2-year college as well?
Yes.
So there is some measurement for that?
There is, yes, and definitely those that just enroll in college, just enrolled in college, that will include those going to 2-year, as well as 4-year, and I think we need to have some clarification as to whether we're going to include going into, vocational school. It just needs to be separated out because they're very different populations.
Thank you.
Okay. We talked about student engagement in extra and co-curricular activities, and we're looking at the courses this year. The instructional practices, that's the graduating seniors based on their classroom experiences. The student attributes of lifelong learners, again, I already went into that. I don't know if there are any questions about that in particular. And the discipline offenses, we checked that already. Now we can go back to the video. Okay. Now 17, I think we're back on track. Thank you. Very sorry about that. Facilities, including functionality, world-class features, technology, use of space, crowding, etc. 4 indices on that one. The percent of the graduating seniors surveyed indicating that facilities meet standards. These are sort of the basic standards, not against the standards that are supposed to be developed later, is what we think of as right now. And that could be something so simple as, was there enough technology in the room for them to be utilizing? Were there enough microscopes, were there, science and all that sort of basic stuff. So that's what that would be about. The percent of parents surveyed indicating that facilities meet standards. Percent of the teachers surveyed, and then of course the percent of campus and district staff surveyed indicating that facilities meet standards. So those are the 4 general survey sources for getting those indices. Number of campuses granted specified levels of autonomy. We just had a discussion with Kathy Mintzberg from CRSS about just this sort of thing. And we have 2 indices we're looking for, just the number and the percent of campuses given some autonomies for the 13-14 school year. And it's supposed to be based on corresponding performances of this school year. And of course, the big challenge is to what do you come up with? What kind of autonomies, shall we have that are commensurate with what kind of performance? So it's supposed to be this one-to-one correspondence with that. This is dealing with the MPE.
Right.
Yes.
And along those lines, I would presume that there will be added, I guess, standards or benchmarks for those specific campuses to see that they maintain or continue to improve.
That's one of the things
whatever
that,
those relationships are.
Right. It's not like, once you have it, you keep it forever no matter what. No.
Right.
My understanding is you can lose it.
Yeah.
And it's about performance.
Yeah.
And sustaining of performance.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Great.
Now, the criteria by which, how much can you drop before you lose it, and all that sort of thing, it's very dicey to come up with a very clear protocol about how you're going to give those autonomies out. Okay. Number 19, very important, student perception of a safe, secure, and respectful environment. 1 index, percent of 2013 graduating seniors indicating the environment was safe, secure, and respectful. Staff retention rates, 1 index, just all employment for 12-13 school year. You notice that the much more delineated one gives a lot of classifications of employees that you'll have. But this one would be the overall. Work culture and environment, including safety, of course. Percent of staff surveyed indicating that the work culture is positive. Again, that'll be in very close consultation with the student education group.
Question there, is that 100% of all staff is going to get a survey? Or are we doing samplings? Do we know yet?
It's all.
It's all staff.
It's all staff.
All staff.
All staff will have the
Perfect.
opportunity, absolutely.
Good. Thanks.
The customer service, 1 index, percent of staff surveyed indicating satisfaction with the combined services of departments, again in consultation with the student education. 23, the customer service standards, district and community, that's to be determined in the summer and the fall of later this year. So there's no index itself that's going to be presented there. With 24, effectiveness of leadership training initiatives, 1 index, percent of leadership training participants surveyed indicating that the training was effective. And now it's a question of which training we're talking about, but I would imagine one of the main things would be the Studer leadership training as being dominant there.
My question there is who or how are we defining effective? How's that going to be quantified?
We're going to trust Studer to help us out with identifying that. That's one of the things that they deal with very systematically.
Yeah.
And so that's going to help us really fine tune what effectiveness is.
Yeah. Thank you.
The parent satisfaction with engagement, support, and communication, 1 index, which is just the percent of parents surveyed indicating overall district engagement, support, and communication. Parent participation offerings in Parent University, 2 indices there. 1 is the percent of all parents participating in the Parent University program, and the other is the total number of participant hours or courses. With 27, the school and community partnerships and parent engagement opportunities, 3 indices there. We have the number of schools with at least one program to engage parents and community. We have the number of volunteers, and then we have the average number of volunteer hours. And that's, again, that's a very difficult one. It's subject to the availability of the data. You know, sometimes it could be very time-consuming or costly. Are there systems that could be put in place, costly systems, for every time a parent comes in there to, you know, how often they were there, under what, to do what? Or does somebody sort of log that all in there? It just needs to be looked at more closely as to how available that data would be.
Like I've said previously, there's many very active parents that could care less and aren't going to put that in there. They're just going to go and do some good things and leave, not take the time because they're not in it for that.
And the researcher in me wants to say one thing about this too, and that is research dealing with student achievement is not about number of hours in the school. It's about the way the parents participate at home, ensuring the students are doing their homework. It's important, all those kinds of things. That's what parent involvement is really about as far as affecting student achievement. So it's, but nevertheless, it's, if we can get that data, it'll be curiously important, I guess. 28, we have the support for the school improvement and strategic plan efforts to become a premier school district. 1 index, % of sampled stakeholders' support of the strategic plan.
That sounds like a softball thing to me, because is there something in here that I'm not realizing? Because everybody is in support of this right now. And is that what that measures? I mean, is that really what it is, or is there more, something deeper here?
I'm sorry, I'm going to be honest. This is one of those indices that could easily go down a little bit before it goes back up.
Okay.
Because of the initial rush of enthusiasm and everything.
And then the rubber hits the
then,
road.
And then, you know, and things are difficult. And a lot of things are difficult, and people find out about it, and so, well, do we really want to do this? The whole thing about changing an organization, those phases that we're going to go through, it's overwhelming that there's going to be a going down before going back up.
Yeah.
So, but
I'm glad you pointed that out. That's important.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
It's good to have those expectations.
Yeah. Thank you.
And challenges, knowing how to face them. Okay. And that concludes. We'll straighten up this PowerPoint and give it, send it to you later. Apologize for that.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. A tremendous, laborious task. I really appreciate it. It's going to do us great things.
Do we need a motion, or what are we voting on? This, to accept that, right? Okay, go ahead. Make a motion.
I move that we approve the proposed strategic plan summary metrics for 12-13.
Second.
Motion by Dr. Reich, second by Mrs. Sullins to accept the proposed summary metrics as proposed. Please vote. All the data hogs voted yes, so I guess we're going to do it. Thank you very much, Dr. Carter. Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wally.
Next item on the agenda is items to be withdrawn from the consent agenda. Are there any items to be withdrawn from the consent agenda? Okay. In that case, we will consider the consent. Ms. Powell.
President Barron, board members, Dr. Cavazos, there are 7 bids on the agenda this evening for your consideration. In all cases, the administration recommends the lowest bids and the bids representing the best value to the district. It's also my privilege this evening to report that our schools have received donations from the following individuals and organizations: United Way of Tarrant County, the Arlington High School Wrestling Booster Club, the Arlington High School Boys Soccer Booster Club, Arlington High School Baseball Booster Club, the Bowie High School Football Booster Club, the Bowie High School Volleyball Booster Club, Martin High School Cheerleading Booster Club, Martin High School Boys Basketball Booster Club, the Martin High School Cross Country and Track Booster Club, Martin High School Girls Basketball Booster Club, Martin High School Baseball Booster Club, Kenneth and Kimberly Merrick, St. Vincent de Paul Men's Club, Mike O'Donnell, Clifford and Beverly Jacobs, Weta Wright Garner, Bowles Junior High School Athletic Booster Club, Church of the Good Shepherd United Methodist, Margie Bryant, Butler Elementary School PTA, General Mills Box Tops for Education, St. Albans Episcopal Church, Spring Creek Barbecue No. 2, Joe and Doreen Bruner, Christopher and Cheryl Downs, Spring Creek Barbecue No. 1, and Walmart. The total donations presented for your consideration this evening, $47,406, which brings our year-to-date total to $667,008.
Thank you, Ms. Powell. Thank you to our generous community. Is there a motion to accept the consent?
Move to approve.
Second?
Motion by Dr. Reich, second by Mrs. Pena to accept the consent. Any further discussion on the consent?
I just would like to say
Dr. Reich.
one thing. On the donations, it is so nice to see such a large number and to see that number exceed what last year's was. I've been watching that and following it, and this is our first tick where we're ahead of last year, and that's phenomenal. Thank you, community.
Please vote. All voting in the affirmative, the consent passes. Thank you. Next, we have a discussion item. It's the legislative update. Dr. Cavazos.
Thank you, President Barron. This time we'd like to provide a legislative update up to this point and report on our trip to Austin as well. So Ms. Powell will provide the first part of this presentation.
President Barron, board members, Dr. Cavazos, we are very early in this 83rd session of the legislature. I'm going to go very quickly through some of the highlights of what has occurred in the last few weeks. The legislature convened on January 8th. To date, House and Senate committees have been appointed, and as of last Friday, we've had over 999 bills and resolutions filed. That number has certainly grown since then. The slide that you see shows 204 of those bills impacting public ed, and just saw an email message a minute ago that shows me that through this afternoon, that number has climbed to 245. Also, we've had a couple of board members, and Dr. Cavazos participated in the Arlington to Austin event that was sponsored by the Arlington Chamber of Commerce. And very quickly, just to kind of give you a flavor of what we're seeing in terms of bills. And the appropriations bill, there has been an appropriations bill filed by both the House and the Senate, and both of them are funding enrollment growth for public schools. Both of them, or neither of them rather, I would say, are restoring some of the discretionary grants that were cut in the last session. They do not, neither one, provide any money for the state assessment program, which is a good signal that that will be a hot topic as the session goes on. Both bills actually spend less money than will be available through the available resources to the state as certified by the State Comptroller's Office. A supplemental appropriations bill has been filed for the current fiscal budget. That particular bill will impact public school districts because it proposes to restore the August 2013 state foundation aid payment that was delayed by action from the last legislature, so that will be good news to districts. And that particular bill is expected to make its way through both chambers and be sent to the governor by March 1st. This board has adopted a legislative agenda that addresses 5 broad categories: accountability and assessment, school finance, graduation requirements, pre-kindergarten, and school choice. And so I picked out several bills, key bills that have been filed under several of these categories. Under assessments and accountability, there have been over 25 bills filed so far, and those bills do a variety of things, including placing a moratorium on assessments in the 14-15 biennium. There are some that eliminate the requirement that end-of-course exams count for 15% of final course grades, and some of them make it optional for a district to count up to 15% of an end-of-course exam for a final course grade. And then also there are combinations of them that eliminate the cumulative scoring requirement for graduation, and others then that limit to 5 the number of end-of-course exams that will count towards graduation. In particular, House Bill 5 was filed yesterday by Representative Aycock, and he is the chairman of the House Public Education Committee. This is considered somewhat of an omnibus bill for public education. It touches almost everything but finance. It reduces the number of end-of-course assessments that are required for graduation from 15 tests to 5. It also eliminates the cumulative score requirement for end-of-course exams and allows satisfactory performance on AP, SAT, or ACT exams to satisfy graduation requirements. It's kind of interesting because every member of the House Public Education Committee, both parties signed on to that particular bill as co-authors, so there's broad bipartisan support for that particular bill. Senate Bill 135 also impacts assessments and accountability. It would allow but not require that a student's performance on an end-of-course assessment account for not more than 15% of a student's final grade in a course. And there was actually a floor amendment. This particular bill has already been discussed in the House and passed, actually. But there was an amendment to that particular bill that struck any language regarding the 15% rule, as opposed to stating that the district could implement the rule if they desired. So that bill has now moved over to the House for assignment to a committee. In terms of school finance, as we've said all along, we expect that there will be minimal changes to the finance provisions for public education until actually the state Supreme Court rules on the school finance lawsuit. As we all know, the state district court ruled that the current funding system was unconstitutional on Monday. I believe that legislators will wait until the Supreme Court rules on that case, which is likely to be sometime next spring. There are several bills that would relate to the state franchise tax, though, that would impact potentially funding available for public education, including there are several bills that would make permanent the current exemption from franchise tax for those businesses that earn less than $1 million, and there are other bills that would seek to raise that exemption from $1 million to $5 million, and then there's bills that would even seek to completely phase out or repeal the state franchise tax. So there are several versions of that in play at the moment. In terms of graduation requirements, Senate Bill 3 has been filed by Senator Patrick, and it actually does a number of things that cross into several of the categories on our legislative agenda. It actually implements a new foundation program for graduation that would change the number of credits that are required. Students would be required to have 11.5 elective credits and 14.5 credits in specified areas. There would be a common or a single diploma program with endorsements available from one of 4 different areas, either a business industry endorsement, an arts humanities endorsement, a STEM, or a distinguished endorsement on the diplomas. It permits current STAR graduate students that have started under the STAR to switch to this foundation program or stay on current programs. And then end-of-course exams, students required to take end-of-course exams or would be required to take end-of-course exams only for the courses that they are actually enrolled in, which means that they would take a total between 8 and 12 different exams. And then it also does have a bit of a funding provision in there in that it would provide weighted funding for career tech courses all the way down to the 8th grade level, which is something that our board had sought in its legislative agenda. Graduation requirements, again, Senate Bill 225 has been filed, and it replaces the current 3 graduation plans with a single graduation plan. Calls for 26 credits for graduation and endorsements on that diploma. It eliminates the 15% requirement, cumulative scores and minimum scores on end-of-course exams, and requires that students pass 5 end-of-course exams for graduation. Also, in graduation requirements, House Bill 399 would delegate authority to local school districts to determine the advanced career and technical courses that might satisfy a 4th requirement for math or science. So that would be a positive thing, providing a little flexibility to school districts. And House Bill 481 would also expand the weighted career tech funding all the way down to grade 7, and it increases the funding weight that's applied to the FTEs who take or participate in career tech courses. In House Bill 5, again, in this area, Representative Aycock's bill crosses again several areas, and it several of our categories. And in terms of graduation requirements, it creates one foundational degree on which students can earn endorsements in different fields. And it would allow school districts to partner with community colleges and industry to develop rigorous courses that address our workforce needs, provide technical training, and count towards graduation. And then that bill also would eliminate the requirement that all students must pass Algebra 2 and English Language Arts 3 to receive a high school diploma. It also seeks to eliminate the 15% rule and grants current 9th and 10th grade students the benefits of this new graduation plan requirement, and allows high school graduates to be eligible for automatic admission to Texas public 4-year universities because all students graduate under the same diploma. In terms of school choice, there have been several bills filed that fall within this category. Several would seek to remove the cap on the number of charters that are allowed. Others actually seek to keep a cap but raise it. One is seeking to change the cap of 215 charters, which is in place now, to 10 new charters per year. And then there would be another bill that would actually potentially present voters with a constitutional amendment that would prohibit the use of public funding for a voucher program. And still another bill that would present voters with constitutional amendment prohibiting state regulation of private schools. So again, tied to this, there's been a great deal of discussion about the use of a franchise tax credit for contributions to a scholarship fund that would help fund scholarships to private schools. Last week, Dr. Cavazos and Mr. Pompa and Ms. Sullins actually traveled to Arlington with the Arlington Chamber of Commerce, and I believe they have a report they'd like to share.
We do a brief report, and then Ms. Sullins, if you want to add anything to this as well. That was a sponsored trip by the Arlington Chamber of Commerce, and we had opportunity to meet with our legislators and others. And so the main topics, just in summary here, that were discussed were accountability requirements, just very similar to what you just reported. Testing, the number of exams the students are taking, and Medicaid. Medicaid was a big topic for all the legislators at the time. We had the opportunity to meet in small groups with Representatives Chris Turner, Diane Patrick, Jonathan Stickland, Matt Krause, and Bill Zettler. And we had the opportunity in small groups to meet with Senator Wendy Davis, Kelly Hancock, Brian Birdwell, and Dan Patrick. And I'll tell you that the format was very productive in the sense that we were in a small group. They presented for about 10 minutes and took a Q&A for about 20 minutes. And we moved right along in that process, very responsive to our questions, and also gave us the opportunity to state our position as the Arlington Independent School District on these matters that are important to our state and our students. Ms. Sullins?
Ditto. It was a great session, and something that I heard from each of them was a plea for all of us to stay very engaged during this session and let them know what's on our mind, what we're hearing in our own district, so that they could take action now while they're in session. And I certainly appreciate the time, not only of these representatives and their senators, but also of their chiefs of staff and their staff that spent additional time with us to talk about issues important to Arlington schools.
Dr. Reich?
I would just like to comment that it's really nice to see so many items that have been of great importance to us in our legislative agenda seen in so many of these bills that you're talking about tonight. And I don't know that it has anything to do with this, but if the board doesn't know, as far as legislative affairs, we did send a letter to every legislator in the state, representatives as well as senators, with our legislative agenda. And maybe that had something to do with it, I don't know. But we're going to continue to be engaged, as Ms. Sullen said, and we have more plans coming to continue to do this, because it's going to get fast and furious in the next weeks to months to come. So thank you for you guys going down to Austin and continuing that. And it's going to be a time commitment for all of us, but it's very, very important. So thank you. Ms. Powell, I don't know how you keep up with all this stuff too. Thank you very much for it.
Could you put the presentation back up? I want to go back to the second to the last slide, I think it was. Back one more. Yeah, the bottom line there. Could you talk about that last bullet a little bit?
And Dr. Cavazos may want to comment on this too, but these are discussions that we're hearing from various legislators about their desire to file bills potentially that would create a tax credit or a scholarship fund via a tax credit on the franchise tax to grant scholarships to private school students. And I think the thought is that, well, these are not considered state funds because they technically never come to the state. They go to a scholarship fund, and then the company paying that gets a credit on their franchise tax. So I don't know if Dr.
So what do you think another word for scholarship is?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Voucher.
Yeah. Vouchers.
This is a shell game to hide vouchers in the form of a scholarship, and the ploy is that since the state never gets its hand on that money, it's not really state money. But this is franchise tax that would ultimately go into the general fund, and it's much like the lottery money. The lottery supports public education. Well, yeah, but what we get from the lottery, they take away in the standard school finance. So this is a wash. Scholarship is just another term there for vouchers.
And as legislative affairs, we're on it. We're doing everything we can to educate people on that and come up with a strategy to try to make this go away. There's actually some legislators that don't agree that it doesn't tap state funds, and there should be accountability strings. And they're waiting to have full proof that it is not use of state funds. The other side is the potential for abuse and essentially a shell voucher kind of program that you've just mentioned. So we're looking at all of those situations. That the worst case scenario is if this is something that goes through, well, that's where we get our dollars as franchise tax. So then we need an offset for our pub ed dollars. So there's all kinds of tricky maneuvers with this.
Mr. Hibbs?
Dr. Reich, I appreciate you mentioning the letter that the Legislative Affairs sent out. I had a chance meeting with Bill Zidler on Saturday, and he actually made comment that he had received it. If in the future you could go ahead and make sure that that's cycled through the entire board, because I could tell you I didn't know about it, so that would be appreciated. But you know, the nice thing about it is that it was read and attributed to us, so we appreciate it.
note well taken. We're still learning the communication protocols. That's actually something we've talked about internally, so I apologize that you had to go, oh, yeah, you're welcome. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Powell.
Thank you.
He didn't read it. All right, that brings us to the open for non-agenda items. We have note cards. I do have one from Mr. Eric McKeever from UEA, and he was commenting on a stipend for bilingual paraprofessionals at campuses, and I'll just pass this along to Dr. Cavazos. Pass it along. Brings us up to the superintendent's report. Dr. Cavazos.
Thank you, President Barron. This time I'd like to share some important events that have taken place since our last meeting. The Arlington Alliance for Youth Collaboration Breakfast was recently held at the PDC. 10 schools received small grants up to $300 for projects to enhance the welfare of Arlington youth. Sam Houston alumnus Justin Chapa was the keynote speaker, and he shared with the audience how the help he received early on in his education and by our schools shaped his confidence to succeed in college. So we thank Jim Walther, who was the originator of the Arlington Alliance for Youth, and his efforts. The Community Resource Fair was held on January 26th, and it's a collaborative effort sponsored by our different departments: communications, bilingual department, dropout, special ed, Title I. More than 80 vendors provided approximately 550 guests with wide-ranging information, including employment, college readiness, ESL classes, and mental health information. It was well attended, and a lot of important information was shared with our community. I want to congratulate Arlington High School Academic Decathlon team that has advanced to state again this year. They won 43 individual medals and a pair of team trophies at the recent regional competition. They go on to state February 21st in El Paso, ranked 7th in the state. So congratulations to Arlington High's Academic Decathlon. That concludes my report.
Any board member reports? Mrs. Pena.
I've been a little bit busy, but trustees have accompanied me to some of these events as well. I went to the Mexican American School Board Association meeting and took my classes, and while I was there, they elected me secretary to the board. So now I'm a director who happens to be secretary as well. I attended that Arlington Alliance for Youth 8th Annual Youth Collaboration Breakfast, and it was very well done, and Justin Chapa spoke very well. I mean, he was a great speaker. I really appreciated what he had to say. I also attended the hot seat in Arlington at UTA College Park Hospitality Suite. It was the people on the hot seat were Representative Diane Patrick and Senator Kelly Hancock. I thought that Diane did a great job. She answered questions right on. You know, you can tell sometimes when someone's dancing around the question that comes from the person asking it, and when they just get right to the answer, and Diane was right on, spot on everything. I was really proud of her. Also attended a Financial Futures Committee meeting this past week, and I want to thank all the volunteers who are serving on that committee. It's going to take time from them, and we went around the room and they introduced themselves, and we've got quite top quality people that are on that committee. I appreciate them doing that. And then also attended the 2013 AISD National Signing Day, where students came up and where they were getting either scholarships or where they were attending now after leaving high school. These were for football, baseball, soccer, swimming, and basketball. And I'm sure I'm leaving one of the volleyball out, is included. And we have many, many fine athletes in our school district. I'm really proud of all our kids and their accomplishments, and I just wanted to brag about them. If I could, I'd say every name, but I don't want to take that time to do that. I just want to acknowledge what they did and their accomplishments, and that's my report.
Mrs. Sullins.
Thank you, President Barron. I think I've been at several events with you, Ms. Pena. I look back over the last few weeks, and the Arlington Alliance for Youth Breakfast was a phenomenal event, and it was great to see so many people that in this community that are so committed to volunteering and engaging for the specific purpose of building strong youth. And hats off to Jim Walther and all of that organization that have have put that together. The FFC is off to a great start. Board, you'll be so pleased with the level of engagement of this committee. I had a great opportunity to attend the John's Chili Cook-Off with Mr. Hibbs, and there were it was a wonderful day with lots of great chili and cornbread. We greatly appreciate your hospitality. I went to the Seguin Girls Rock, and men is magnificent, educated, and needed. And what an amazing evening that was. Seguin has put together these programs to empower students, and what really stuck out to me was the audience was absolutely packed with students listening carefully, engaging with people who were looking to build them into stronger young adults. And, you know, it's one thing to have these programs. It's another thing to attract that many students that were that engaged. So I was very impressed, and it was great to see you all at Seguin. And then just today, I was at Arlington High School. I think there's a picture that may pop up, and I've spent several hours with the IB program. You'll see a picture here of some students in IB German. Some of these students have only been in IB German for 1 year, and their entire class, every word spoken was in German. They were doing presentations, was very impressed with how articulate they were, and how they were working to gain these language skills. And especially we talk about establishing global standards in our district. It was very apparent that that work is well underway with at Arlington High School. That's it for me. Thanks.
I had the pleasure of attending the Martin Luther King banquet at UTA with Dr. Reich, Dr. Cavazos, Mr. Hogg. Always a fun night. Of course, I can never eat the chicken there, but 1 year they will have something without nuts, and then I can eat it. I do want to thank the gentleman from the Masonic Lodge number 438 for coming in and visiting with us this evening, especially Mr. Steve Shipe. Appreciate them. And the Seguin High School Chamber Choir under the direction of Thomas Rinn and Kate Zwirst. They sang fabulously, and we're so proud of our fine arts program. Dr. Reich, any items for next time?
None noted.
Let me ask Mr. Hogg, do you want to bring back that tuition thing and we'll talk about it next time?
Yeah, I'd like to.
Okay, we'll do that. Would you add that? Okay, good. And that way we can get that settled before everybody starts camping out. Okay. Okay, we have 2 student appeals tonight. With regard to student A discipline appeal, that has been withdrawn. For student B discipline appeal, is the student or the parent here? Okay. If not, the board will consider this appeal as being withdrawn. We have no further items. We are adjourned.